Hello and welcome to Into the 99, where we have 99 cards because Commander's number 1. I'm your hostess Lotus for another episode of Brewing It Live, and with me is Han.
Hello, everybody.
Hello! And today we are going back to Commander Legends, mainly because the new Strixhaven spoilers have sparked me to do Wizard Tribal. Although it might not end up Wizard Tribal, but I wanted to do Obeka, the Brute Chronologist. So she is a 1 blue, black, red for a 3/4 legendary creature ogre wizard with tap. The player whose turn it is may end the turn. Now, I don't know about you, but that's spicy.
No, it's definitely spicy.
It,
And the flavor text says, I'm
yeah,
bored with now.
I'm bored with now, definitely. But I have a card before we even start. I love this card. And
Oh, pre-game effects.
no, I don't want to go straight into ley lines just yet.
Oh, that's mine.
But this card I used to play all the time, and then Obeka was printed. Sundial of the Infinite. A 2-mana
Yep.
artifact with 1 and tap. End the turn. Activate this ability only during your turn. I used to love this card, and when they printed Obeka, it was almost like a match made in heaven.
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, Sundial of the Infinite goes in no matter what, just because of redundancy's sake.
Of course. And if you want to talk about redundancy, it's discontinuity. I mean, just end the turn.
Oh, see, I had a couple of other ones, but yeah,
I'm just
that's
getting
the one
so
that's.
excited. Sorry, this this commander is awesome. Really is awesome. Evening, Ashen.
How you doing, Ash?
Go
Yeah,
on.
so
I've taken the spotlight. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. So yeah, before we go any further, Obeka with this Sundial of the Infinite effect and ability, where you can just end the turn, you pretty much know that you're gonna have to get Obeka out a couple of times at the very least, because either it'll get board wiped or targeted removal or something to that nature.
Yeah.
So there's a couple land abilities that are really key that I want to go into. Command Beacon is just going to get rid of command text once you start not being able to afford it.
Yep.
I think that's a great way to just bring Obeka back to your hand. You can recast it for 4 once it gets later on in the game.
Yeah. You save it till that point that you can't cast anymore.
Yeah, and one other one that I wanted to highlight specifically right now was Minamo, School at Water's Edge. You can play the Minamo, it'll tap for a blue for your mana pool, and you could also pay a blue and tap it to untap target legendary permanent. So you can untap Obeka with it.
Yeah. Okay, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah. So that was one of the ones that I really wanted to highlight as far as Obeka was concerned. For myself, I didn't quite go Wizard Tribal.
I just got excited, and I know that most people won't always go Wizard Tribal. It's just I'm a very tribal heavy player.
Yeah.
Hey,
For my
Jacuzzi.
for myself, I actually wound up going a little bit more along the lines of steal things and play for play for abusing that end of turn effect ability. However, you know what's the scariest thing for Obeka? When players don't know what you're gonna do during your turn. So to that effect, I think I do want to put a ley line of anticipation in here.
Sure. As long as I can put in Vidal Canori.
I mean, by all means. Ashen has some ideas for a more creature-based deck. Some of these may overlap with us as well. So Felden of the Third Path. is a fantastic creature. Did you have that one in yours?
I did. Because create copy, exile at the next end step. Once that trigger hits the stack, end the turn. The trigger has already happened, so it will never happen again, but it's exiled from the stack, so you'll never have to sacrifice it.
Yeah, and it's just a copy of a target creature in your graveyard. So you don't take it out of your graveyard, it just makes a token. And this also goes hand in hand with Minamo as well. You
Yeah.
can target Feldon because it's a legendary creature to untap it and do it all over again.
Yeah, that's beautiful synergy. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one? Flame Shadow.
Flame Shadow Conjuring. Yeah, this was definitely on my list. So Flame Shadow Conjuring is an enchantment, 3 and a red. Whenever
Yeah.
a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 red. If you do, you put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step, which again will never happen
No.
as long as we have Obeka out.
Though on a similar line, it's not as consistent, but what about Mirror March?
Yeah, Mirror March will do it as well.
It's until you lose a flip. So you could get none, you could get a lot.
I mean, if we're bringing some Mirror March spice into it right off the bat, I will go ahead and just jump the gun and say, let's throw in a Sakashima of 1,000 faces. Because if we want to make legendary copies of things, let's do a bunch of them.
True. And if that is the case and you want to go down that route, do we just put in a mirror gallery?
Mirror Gallery?
Mirror gallery, 5 mana artifact. The legend rule doesn't apply.
That is spicy.
It affects everyone, but who else at the table is going to make multiple legendaries like us?
I would say Sakashima is pretty prevalent nowadays, so it might not just be us. However, yes, I don't mind it being an Obeka. So I have a couple in chat right now. So along with Feldon, there was also Cedrus, the Traitor King, which I believe is the version that Zach plays in, as far as Into the 99 wise. His Cedrix deck was basically his Obeka deck before Obeka. So shout out to Zach.
Each creature in your graveyard has Unearth for 2 and a black. For 2 and a black, return the card into play. The creature gains haste. Remove it from the game, or so exile it at the end of turn, or if it would leave play. Unearth only as a sorcery. So you can only do it in your turn, which is fine for us. And then once it gets to the end of the turn and the trigger hits the stack, we'll end our turn.
Yeah. And the last one that Ashen suggested off of his first section of suggestions is Aromi of Dead Tide. So Aromi was one that I actually loved when it got spoiled back in Commander Legends. Aromi reads is 1 blue and a black for a legendary merfolk wizard. Stat line is a 1 power, 4 toughness. You can just tap Aromi and you exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn. The Encore cost is equal to its mana cost.
Ooh.
So you can exile paying number of cards, exiling cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents. So the fewer opponents you have, the fewer cards you have to exile to be able to activate it.
Yeah.
However, the Encore will also reduce, correct? Because it's for each opponent, you create a token copy.
Yeah. So you'll only get 1 per opponent.
Yeah. So typically you'll want to still do this with 3 opponents most oftentimes. However, yeah, I mean, if you even get two, it's not the worst thing in the world, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, my idea as far as deck building was more along these lines. So it was a lot of filling up our graveyard and then potentially reanimating really big things or bringing them back as copies and then keeping them around.
Yeah, definitely effects that you think would be too powerful, so they exile at the end of turn, and then we're just gonna make it even more broken by not letting that happen. So, depending on how many legendaries we've got, you can do things like um, Kiki Jiki.
Sure.
So I know there's that whole Splinter Twin Kiki Jiki combo. So put a
Uh,
token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control onto the battlefield. That token has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Again, that
mm,
trigger hits the stack. We end the turn. We no longer have to sacrifice.
right. My combo was actually not Splinter Twin, it was Zealous Conscripts.
Oh,
So Zealous Conscripts will go infinite with Kikijiki as it's I mean it's a known combo, but Zealous Conscripts is a 4 and a red for a human warrior with haste. It's a 3/3. And when it ETBs, you gain control of a target permanent until end of turn and you untap that permanent and it gains haste until end of turn. So by doing this, you will make a token copy of a Zealous Conscripts on ETB, target Kikijiki, untap it, and now you have infinite numbers of Zealous Conscripts.
yeah. Okay. That's insane.
So, I mean, yeah, we have Splinter Twin as far as doing the essentially the same thing as well. It's just Zealous Conscripts is a creature that you can target with Kikijiki to just let it go off.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I say reasonable. It's filth, and I love it. So,
Ashen also has some high risk, high reward suggestions in. I'm just going to kind of put these three all together: Final Fortune, Last Chance, and Warrior's Oath. These are all take another turn after this one, and then at the end of that turn, you lose the game, I believe.
yeah, Warrior's Oath. And what was the one I missed?
Final Fortune, Last Chance, and Warrior's Oath. Now, these all have spiked in price since Obeka got released. Warrior's
True.
Oath is now sitting at $300. Last Chance is 150.
Yeah, these are all quite pricey.
Yeah, as of now. The 2 mana extra turn spells all really went up with Obeka, even the ones with the downside.
Yeah, especially. I mean, you've got Sundial of the Infinite. You've got Obeka. There's stifle effects. You can do so many things to prevent it. It's not going to be too hard.
Right. And the last one that was under his high risk, high reward suggestion was Phage the Untouchable. Phage is a legendary creature, avatar minion, 3 black. So 7 CMC for a 4/4. When Phage enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast this from your hand, you lose the game. However, when Phage deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature, can't be regenerated. Whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game.
Yeah, I used to play this in my morph deck. I'd swing at someone for 2 damage with a morph, and they go, "Sure, it's a morph. I'll take it," and then unmorph it to show Phage.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Gotcha.
I have never seen someone
So,
look so unhappy.
so my game plan and strategy would not make use of Phage because I have cards such as Living Death in here.
True.
However, you can certainly go that route.
See, I was also going. I mean, everything is running that Obeka's going to survive the turn. Otherwise, what we're doing is just for nothing.
Right.
Um, but trying to get things on the board quicker and cheaper as a sneak attack.
For sure. Yeah.
Just for a single red, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Sacrifice the creature at the beginning of the next end step. With Obeka,
Yeah.
we won't have to do
Yeah. You can't quite do that with Phage.
that. I
So
mean, you
yeah,
can. You
Phage.
can still put Phage into the. Oh, you'll end the turn straight away, wouldn't you?
You'd have to.
Yeah. That's going to be a bit more tricky, actually.
Right. So I actually went along different routes. I did not include Phage in mine, but if you want to go with that route, you certainly can.
I'm going to remove it purely because it's more difficult to work around. And most of the time we'll be casting it from our hand, except for sneak attacks. But
Right.
I think it will interfere with the actual end of turn more than I expect.
Right. So
Because
for
this
my
is at the beginning of the next end step. So if Phage came down in, say, the middle of our turn, we end the turn. Our next player will have the next end step, and we'll have to sack everything. So it's a bit dangerous.
right. I mean, he did. Ashen said that it was high risk, high reward.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. I just wanted to say
um,
why I cut it. That was all.
yeah. So for myself, like I said, I wanted to fill my graveyard up and do a lot of reanimating things. So that doesn't necessarily mean my graveyard only. It could also mean our opponents.
Yeah.
So I liked a new card that was actually out of call time for this deck. King Narfi's Betrayal. It's the blue, black, and one saga. Each player mills 4 cards for chapter 1, and
Yeah.
then they may exile a creature or planeswalker card from each graveyard. So you get to exile one creature or planeswalker from every graveyard, which, if we're filling up our graveyards, it's not that big of a hit. Whereas you might get rid of a problem card immediately once you mill the 4 cards from each player.
Yeah.
Seems very strong. And then chapters 2 and 3 are both very interesting. Until the end of the turn, you may cast spells from among cards exiled with Narfi's Betrayal, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells.
Okay.
Interesting part is that this is all spells. You don't even have to. It can be an instant, a sorcery, creature, you name it.
Okay. So it's just a nice way to make more effort out of their graveyards.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems reasonable. Now,
And then, yeah, go ahead.
if you were going to go for the graveyard side of things and wanting to get stuff out of graveyards, Underworld Breach. May I suggest this one? For 1 and a red, an enchantment. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost, plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. At the
Yeah.
beginning of your end step, sacrifice this. Again, we wouldn't have to if we have a backup.
Right. Yeah, I like it a lot.
So if you're starting to fill up our graveyard, we can start casting stuff from it.
Yeah. And to that effect, I actually also like a card called Avaricious Dragon. I believe this is from Magic Origins. 2 red for a flying 4/4 dragon. And at the beginning of your draw step, you draw an additional card. But at the beginning of your end step, you discard your hand.
No, we don't.
I mean, we don't, but even if we do, if we're going the reanimator strategy,
Yeah, that's
we
fair.
don't mind dumping it into the graveyard if they happen to get rid of Obeka or not.
That's fair. To be fair, that was on my list as well, that one.
It's a really good card for Obeka.
I quite liked it. Um, again, on the other side of reanimating, then, which does tie into Obeka, Goryo's Vengeance.
Oh, I love that card.
Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, no. So,
Yeah,
return
it
target legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step.
absolutely. Yep. I actually pulled one of these as a box stopper, and now it's coming full circle. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this in an Obeka deck.
Yeah. It's surprising how many cards that seem okay, like Underworld Breach or Mirror March, you're like, yeah, it's okay. But then you chuck in Obeka, and then it's just continuous value.
Yeah, I quite liked the Burning Rune Demon as well from the recent set Call Time. 4 black for the Demon Berserker with flying 6/6. As it enters the battlefield, search your library for 2 cards, not named Burning Rune Demon, which is not a problem in ARC format.
Yep.
If you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them. Put the chosen card into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Then shuffle your library. So let's dump something that we want in a graveyard. And maybe something else that's in our hand. Who wants to choose?
Yeah. Give them the best of two bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I quite like that. So, also, you know how much I love this card. I try and fit this sort of thing in, not necessarily this card, but this kind of theme. Ilhog.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we
It's
can
sneak
try and,
attack on our boar god.
yeah, try and
Kaldheim
actually
didn't meet
sneak
this
attack some
god.
stuff.
Yeah, Kaldheim never saw this god coming.
Oh no, definitely not.
Yeah, so Ilharg was out of War of the Spark. 6/6 Trampler. Whenever Ilharg, the Raise Boar, attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When Ilharg dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, third from the top. Nah.
No, we just want more value out of it.
Yeah. I like Ilharg a lot. The issue with Ilharg typically, though, is that it doesn't get to attack right away.
Fair.
So to alleviate that issue, might I suggest an anger to throw into our graveyard?
True.
So anger, multiple printings, 3 in a red, 2/2 incarnation with haste, and when it's in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control all have haste.
I like that. I also like the Yargle Anger of the Gods, but that's another story. Is having
So
one Obeka enough? I know you've got Sakashima.
right,
What about Spark Double?
I'm good with Spark Double.
I think it's a card that is it is used, but I think it is forgotten sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think some blue decks that rely on their commander, doubling your commander is just a good thing.
Doubling any good commander is a good thing in most
Yeah,
decks.
that's fair.
For example, if you were to double, I don't know, Cedrus, not the worst either. You can still unearth everything, even if they remove one. What are they going to do?
I am struggling to find this.
Cedrus, the Traitor King. It's Sedris.
We've got that already on the board, haven't we?
I believe so, yeah.
There he is. Just trying to bring it up quicker.
So yeah, Cedrus is great. Um, for myself, I also wanted to throw in a Hellkite Courser because
I am literally looking at this card right now.
so Hellkite Courser is the new dragon from Commander Legends. If you haven't picked one up, it is ridiculous. You should pick one up. 4 red and a red for a flying 6/5 dragon, and when it ETBs, you put a commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste, so it allows everything Obeka wants to do immediately, including the downside of Hellkite Courser, return it to the command zone at the beginning of the next end step.
Yep. But for us, that's the kind of stuff that we can stop.
Mm-hmm. Now, to go with Hellkite Courser and many of these other fantastic ETB abilities, I just wanted to throw out a Thassa Deep Dwelling
Yeah.
because I want to just get some value out of all those ETBs.
Plus, it has a bit of protection built onto it if we get stuck.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. Now, this is a card that I forgot existed until today. But we're going to need some card draw. And what's better than Ideas Unbound? It's from the Kamigawa block. It's
Mm-hmm.
blue for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards. Discard 3 cards at the end step.
Sometimes we might not even want to Obeka that, depending on
Yeah,
if we have 3 creatures we really want to just throw into our graveyard. I like it.
yeah. I mean, if you have all the at the end of turn triggers, you can stack them however you want, let some resolve, and then exile the stack by ending the turn.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, to that effect, I mean, I personally had, because of, wanting to fill up my graveyard, I had all the other cards that are quite similar. Careful Study, Cathartic Reunion, Faithless Looting, Factor Fiction, things like that.
Yeah,
Frantic Search. So all these cards are card draws that draw you cards, discard cards to some degree, and fill up your graveyard while you draw cards that you want. Most recently, even in Call Time, they got the new art for strategic planning. With the guy with the, I believe it's Alrund. He has all the runes on his arms. I
yeah.
picked up one of those in foil. It looks great.
I can imagine those runes just pop.
Very much so.
Also, how many cards are you wanting to draw?
I mean, who doesn't like card draw?
What about Psychic Vortex? It's an enchantment for
Hmm.
2 blue, cumulative upkeep, draw a card. At the end of each of your turns, sacrifice a land and discard your hand.
Yeah. Cumulative upkeep draw cards. So you're drawing more cards each turn.
Yeah, you go 1, 2, 3, keep going.
Yeah, that seems ridiculous. As long as we have an Obeka effect out, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, let's throw that in. That seems like a winner.
I I've never seen a card that was actually so useful.
So, to assist in the reanimating strategy, I wanted to throw in things like an apprentice necromancer, if we're keeping it under the creature based effects, with effects such as Aromi and uh, anything that will get these creatures out of our graveyards. It's
Yeah,
just nice to have more creatures that will do the same effect.
yeah, that's fair.
Apprentice Necromancer, 1 and a black. Pay a black and tap this creature to sacrifice it. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste at the beginning of the next end step. Don't sacrifice it.
Yeah, I like these new rules that we're adding to cards.
Don't quote us on these cards because
Yeah,
we are
really
altering
don't.
them based on our commander Obeka.
Um, there's a card. I think it should be. I think it's a card that goes in every blue deck. It's a total mistake, um, but I love it. Mystic Reflection. It doesn't matter what your deck's doing. Mystic Reflection is just as good as a Cyclonic Rift in some cases. Someone's playing a problematic card, turn it into, I don't know, a Llanowar Elf or something ridiculous. Someone's got something really big and you want a copy, you know, cast your little 2-mana thing and this. It's just insane.
Yep. I would wholeheartedly agree. To go hand in hand with Mystic Reflection, I quite liked the idea of an Isochron Scepter without putting in a dramatic reversal because you could do silly things like Mystic Reflection.
Yeah. Can you imagine doing that
Iso-
every single time?
yeah, Isochron Scepter, 2 mana artifact with imprint. As it comes into play, you can remove an instant card with CMC 2 or less in your hand from the game, such as Mystic Reflection. Pay 2 mana and you may copy the imprinted instant card and play the copy without paying mana cost because you just paid 2 for it. But you get to do it every time.
Oh, yes. And if we're on artifacts, let's go for a Mimic Vat.
Absolutely. It's a match made in heaven for an Obeka deck.
3-mana artifact imprint. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. So you can only have one under it at a time. 3 and tap. Create a token that is a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. We won't be exiling that.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of artifacts, I think that Obeka could use some protection in the way of artifacts. Our tried and true Swiftfoot boots or lightning greaves should do the trick.
Yeah. You gotta
Because,
accessorize with those booties.
yeah. If you didn't know that ogre wizards love their boots and shoes, this one does. And one other artifact that I wanted to bring to the spotlight was actually Thousand Year Elixir. Seems fantastic. 3 mana for this artifact. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though they have haste. And you can pay 1 mana and tap the Thousand Year Elixir to untap a target creature.
Ooh. I quite like
So that way, you don't even have to hold any kind of specific color mana up, and you can untap Obeka at will. To that line of thought, enchantments such as Freed from the Real or Pemin's Aura probably both work towards that. To
Yeah.
untap. But you can easily untap Aromi, you can untap Felden of the Third Path, you can untap Obeka. You've got plenty of choices for untapping.
Kiki Jiki. Yeah. We have a few.
Yep.
Are we
Now-
going to take some planeswalkers?
I had only one in mind. Which one did you think of?
I had Saheeli Rai. Because her -2, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control. Except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. The token gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So we could copy Sundial of the Infinite. If we have Sakashima, we can copy Obeka.
Yeah, it seems good.
What was the one you had in mind?
Um, I had the idea for, I believe it's a Chandra Flamecaller, but I'm not entirely certain if it fits.
Is that the one that makes the two...
It does make the 2/3/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste
Yeah,
for the +1 ability. You can also, however, discard all the cards in your hand and draw that many +1. So it's still card advantage in that regard with the +0.
true. So for 0,
How,
you still get to draw, if you're empty-handed, at least 1.
right. Or if you don't have the answer for a certain problem, you can at least still discard all the cards in your hand, which may be a bunch of creatures that you want in your graveyard.
True. I'm not unhappy by it.
The only thing is that the mana cost was a little bit high. So for myself, I don't mind running a bunch of high mana costed permanents, such as Molten Primordial. Molten Primordial is a 5 red creature with haste. It's an avatar creature. And when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you gain up to 1 target creature that player controls until the end of turn. Untap those creatures. They gain haste until end of turn.
Okay. So that's until the end of turn. That's not at the end of turn. So we won't be
Right.
able to keep them.
Right. And that's fine. For myself, that was just to kind of clear the way with all the creatures that we do have, as
True.
far as trying to take some blockers out. However, the reason I don't mind running these specifically is because I have a Dream Devourer that I wanted to throw into this Obeka deck. Dream Devourer is the Demon Cleric out of Kaldheim, where each non-land card in your hand without Foretell now has Foretell. Its Foretell cost is equal to its mana cost, reduced by 2.
Okay.
That's the only part that matters on Dream Devourer, honestly. Whenever you foretell a card, Dream Devourer gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and it's a 0/3.
Even if Dream Devourer is gone, the foretell cards still actually are able to be cast as well.
Right. And the best part about having them foretold is that they are no longer in your hand. So if you are to run things like Windfall or any of the wheels, discard your hand from Chandra, Flamecaller, perfectly okay.
Yeah. No, that seems reasonable. Now, if we're having a lot of end the turn effects, it looks like we're trying to do quite a lot of attacking. But what if we made it a bit more fun for our opponents as well?
Oh, I thought we were here to have fun ourselves.
Yeah, but I want our opponents to have fun.
All right,
So,
what do you have in mind?
Rite of the Raging Storm. 3 red for an enchantment. Creatures named Lightning Rager can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player creates a 5/1 red elemental creature token named Lightning Rager. It has trample, haste, and, at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice it. So everyone's going to get a 5/1 that they can't use to attack us. It has trample and haste. They will lose it at the end of turn. Ours will keep growing. We'll keep getting more and more.
I believe I suggested this in a different Brewin It Live, and I love it for this deck.
So they're going to want to use their 5/1s because otherwise they'll just have a 5/1 and it will be wasted. Whereas we'll build up an army.
Yep, I like it.
But
I like that a lot.
I've just remembered there's a card going back a little bit. What's better than a sneak attack when you have planeswalkers? Sneak attacking your planeswalkers.
I'm not sure. Which one are you thinking of right now?
Planebound Accomplice. 2 and a red for a human wizard. Pay a red. You may put a Planeswalker card from your hand onto the battlefield. Sacrifice it
Aha.
at the beginning of the next end step. Now your 6 mana Chandra doesn't seem so bad.
Nope, certainly does not. Cheating out planeswalkers, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, we can whack a few big ones in there if you want.
Nope, I think I'm good with it. Um, Here's another one that I actually really liked. It's called Hate Mirage. It's a sorcery, 3 and 1 red for choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. For each of those creatures, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah.
So our opponents still get to keep those creatures. We're not stealing them per se, but we would also like one.
Yeah, I can see that being fair. I say fair loosely.
Because we don't exile them.
No. Have we got... We don't. We don't have a
What do
Molten
we?
Echoes in this deck. Molten Echoes. 2 red enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. I think most of them are wizards, but I'm going to have to check. When a non-token creature enters under the chosen type, create a token that's a copy of that creature. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many wizards we've got. We've got 1, 2... That's not a wizard. Cleric. Artificer. Dragon. Boar. God. Shaman. It might not actually be that good in this deck.
I mean,
No.
if you really want to make it work, we can just throw in a Maskwood Nexus.
I think that's going to be too convoluted. One card to make one card work.
I mean, yes, but you wanted to make this a wizard tribal deck, right?
Not necessarily. It was just where my mind went.
I was just going to let you live the dream, but okay. So, for myself, I also wanted to include the Eradicator Valkyrie. 2 black for the Angel Berserker. That is a flying lifelink hexproof from Planeswalkers. 4/3 as the power toughness. But it also has Boast. 1 and a black, and you sacrifice a creature, and each opponent sacrifices a creature or Planeswalker.
Okay, and if we're making all those token copies, we're not really fussed.
Right? See, I also wanted to throw in a Tergrid, though. So, Tergrid, for those, it's the god out of Kaldheim with the artifact on the back. Tergrid, God of Fright. 4/5 menace. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So we can just boast Eradicator Valkyrie, sacrificing a creature, and each opponent will now sacrifice a creature or Planeswalker. Hope they have some Planeswalkers.
This has made me want to just chuck a load of wheel effects in now.
Well,
you play things like I want to just say Wheel of Fortune, but it's not.
Windfall.
Windfall.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. The
Yeah.
value
Why
of
don't we
that.
just Windfall? Why don't we just Wheel of Fortune? Why don't we Wheel of Misfortune?
That's the Wheel of Sun and Moon. No. Wheel of Misfortune.
And tying back in, I mean, again, we can get stuff out of our opponent's graveyards. We can make them sacrifice. And so I also, for my deck list, I wanted to throw in a Court of Cunning. At the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players each mill 2 cards. But if you're the Monarch, you will have each of those players mill 10 cards instead.
Yeah.
By itself, it's fantastic. With Turgid, the value is insane.
Uh, they're not discarding though.
Right, but we can still get creatures out of their graveyards.
True.
So things like Animate Dead or
Sidrus for our graveyard, but
oh right. Yeah, I was gonna go with something like a Rakshasa Debaser.
ooh,
So it's the 6/6 cat demon out of Commander Legends 4 black and black. And whenever Rakshasa Debaser attacks, you can put a target creature from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. However, if you encore this for 6 black and a black, you make a copy of Rakshasa Debaser that attacks each opponent, and you will get that effect 3 times over.
yeah,
And you won't be sacrificing those copies either at the beginning of our next end step.
I like that. How do you
So,
how do you feel about this one? Identity Thief. So
which one's Identity Thief?
it's 2 blue for a shapeshifter 0/3. Whenever it attacks, you may exile another target non-token creature. If you do, Identity Thief becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn. Return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
That's hysterical. So this essentially exiles and just doesn't give it back. Is that what I'm hearing?
With Obeka. Can you
See, I
imagine?
had.
Can you imagine mirror marching about 5 of these?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Nope. I like it a lot. I think that for me is. So I had Void Walk for like kind of an effect. Void Walk is 3 and a blue for the sorcery that exiles a target creature and it returns to the battlefield under its own control at the beginning of the next end step.
With
But they
Scyther.
don't. And it has Cipher. So,
I found
uh,
the creature that just has it built in.
yep. So, yeah, let's throw in Voidwalk and Cipher. And Cipher just says, then you may exile this spell card after you've resolved it, encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card, Voidwalk, without paying its mana cost. So it just does it again and again as long as you deal combat damage to a player.
Yeah, I like that.
I think this deck is coming together quite well.
We're
So
currently at 94 cards,
we're good for some more.
so we're good for
So
more, but I don't know if you wanted to start on, I'd say removal, but I think that covered it. But I mean, did
oh,
you
we're gonna
want
need some more
did you
ramp
want to add
things of that nature.
Cyclonic Rift and the good old Faithfuls, or
Yeah, let's go ahead and put in a Psych Rift. We'll also I personally want to shout out Muddle the Mixture in here because I love transmuting for in this case either Mystic Reflection or a regular old counter spell or yeah, the Cyclonic Rift if we absolutely need to find it, I guess.
yeah?
However, one other thing, I believe with some of those creatures that I suggested, Burning Rune Demon and Rakshasa Debaser, things like that, I think some of them might be costly.
Okay. Wow.
So
Our
I
curve
wanted,
is at 3.5.
Right. Well, I would just like to get some value out of it. So I'm still going to suggest a Rakdos Lord of Riots here.
Of course, we're in the colours.
You know, I just want to pay 2 red for Avaricious Dragon. I would like to pay 2 black for Burning Rune Demon and have mana up for other things to do.
Is this just because Tracy's watching?
Even if she's not watching, it's fantastic.
But we obviously need our soul ring.
Now, my only question, however, is
Arcane Signet.
does Rakdos get rid of Obeka's commander tax? Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it does the job well of just, yeah, let's keep our commander out and up and running.
Yeah. So we've got the soul ring and the Arcane Signet because Arcane Signet is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need any more fixing?
Possibly.
We are almost split evenly. So
I mean, that
would
sounds fine.
a chromatic lantern help us?
I see. I think it's fine. Um, yeah, we can throw a chromatic lantern in.
Yeah. I
I
am
also want
not
to.
having that art though. I do not like that one.
Sure. I also think that if we wanted to go a little bit more,
Poetic
I
justice, yes, my lord and savior.
hi Tracy. Um, what do you feel about? I know you've mentioned Underworld Breach.
Yes.
How do you feel about Mnemonic Betrayal? I quite like it in an Obeka deck. So Mnemonic Betrayal, 1 blue and black, sorcery out of Guilds of Ravnica. Exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. You may cast those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast those spells. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain exiled, return them to their owner's graveyards.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean that's not bad.
Who needs a Bojuka Bog when you can cast the spicy ones and then exile the rest?
Well, I mean, cast this, cast the spicy ones, the ones that you can't, then Bajuka Bog.
Right.
Get all the value.
But I mean, with Obeka, if you tap and end your turn, none of those cards have to return to their owner's graveyards.
No.
Now, you also have to exile Mnemonic Betrayal, but that's besides the point.
That's fine. I'm sure we're not worried about that.
Right. And I think good old Gary kind of just goes into an Obeka deck, right?
I
If we're
mean, we
doing
can
some
bounce it,
reanimation.
and we are copying a lot, so
Yeah, reanimate Aromi is also a thing. So if you Arame and Encore Grey Merchant, it's at least 6 pips from Grey Merchant alone. And Arame would be the 7th pip, I suppose. So you have 3 Grey Merchants with 7 devotion minimum to gain that much life back.
yeah.
Could just be a game ender at that point, but
Sometimes Gary is all you need.
yeah.
I'm Okay, we're at 102 cards, and I'm really quite impressed where this has gone so far. I'm scared of the value that we're nearly $700, and that's
Or
not including the Wheel of Fortune because it's not actually coming up with a price.
right. Have you added the Final Fortune Last Chance Warrior's Oath? Because that could also be a huge chunk of it. Those extra turns.
They have their prices on.
Right. So, I mean, Warrior's Oath is $300 of that.
Yeah, Wheel of Fortune is another 300, so we're at $1,000. But we never said we were doing it to budget.
Right.
Again, if you're doing this at home, I know myself, I don't own these cards, so I'm not expecting you to go out and pay for these. But, proxy them, see how they play, or
Do some
find alternatives, or mix them with other cards that you like playing with. There's nothing from stopping you. We're
yeah,
just brewing a deck that we like the sound of.
do some powerful magic things and all you need is a printer and, card stock. So,
Yeah. I mean, I know I don't even own a mirror gallery. As much as I want to. But, right. Do we need any heavy removal other than a Psych Rift? Do we need any
I don't
tutors?
I don't think we need heavy removal. If we're tutoring, I mean, we have Burning Rune Demon to kind of tutor.
Yeah.
My version of tutor personally was going to be something like a Buried Alive, just to kind of throw what we want into the graveyard. But I mean, we can certainly do with what kind of tutors were you thinking of specifically? Demonic?
Well, Grim Tutor is a nice one. But,
Storm tutor works.
yeah, Grim Tutor, it's been recently reprinted. It's an easier, accessible card. If you still can't get hold of one and you can't pay the money for it, you got Diabolic Tutor, which is an extra mana. But they're like, are they uncommon, common? But they're literally under $1.
Yeah. Hmm. Just looking at our deck here. So, I mean, the obvious kind of removals I want to say are your counter spells. You've got um, Bedevil, Chaos Warp in our colors.
Chaos Warp might be quite good because we can Chaos Warp our own thing and maybe hit something interesting.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, I also think that the Chandra Flame Caller might not do enough for us at the 6th drop.
That's fair. And if that's the case and we're losing Chandra, Planebound Accomplice isn't going to do much.
Right, it's only for our Saheeli.
Yeah, for one Planeswalker, that's not going to do much work.
Yeah, even if it was 2. Let's see. I think
So, just for the sake of cost, I'm going to take out Wheel of Fortune.
that's fine.
Um,
I think Windfall is just strictly easier to access as well.
so, what we've got? We've got Last Chance, Warrior's Oath, and Final Fortune. Final Fortune's 30, Last Chance is 50, Warrior's Oath is 200. I'll take that one out so we don't need all three. And again, it will reduce our cost of the deck because not everyone will have that card. In fact, most people won't have that card. And if you do have that card, you're very lucky.
Yeah, turn around and sell it. Buy the rest of this deck. I'll be honest, I don't know how you feel about it, Lotus, but me, I'm okay cutting the extra turn stuff, just to make it feel better. Because again, we're running an Isochron Scepter. I don't want to have a deck that has infinite turns that way with Obeka out, personally.
Okay, I can see how that would go down as a feel bad. So
Right.
I will take out Final Fortune, but I kind of would like to leave in Last Chance as just one, because as much as it may be a feel bad, sometimes you just need to end a game.
Well, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna need to keep the Final Fortune in because Isochron Scepter can't do sorceries.
So I have to switch them round.
Yeah, so keep the Final Fortune if that's the case, and Last Chance and the Warrior's Oath would be the ones to go because those two are sorceries. Those are also the more expensive ones, to be fair as well.
Yeah. So we'll keep Final Fortune. Yeah.
And I'm looking at this, and this is a little bit light on the reanimates if we're taking those two sorceries out.
Okay. We are
So for
exactly
me,
100, so we'll still cut.
remind me, did we already add animate dead in here?
I
Just looking for it.
don't believe so.
Yeah, I like animate dead. It hits any graveyard. And then I was going to suggest just plain old reanimate.
Yep.
And one last card that I wanted to kind of throw in here was actually a Puppeteer Click.
Ooh.
So Puppeteer Click is 3 black black for the 3/2 Flying Fairy Wizard. When Puppeteer Click enters the battlefield, put a target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. At the beginning of your next end step, exile it. And it does have persist.
True. But we're not going to exile it at the beginning of the next end step.
No, if we can, we would also want to just Thassa this over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Keep Thassa's bouncing it. If that's
Yep.
what we're going to do, should we just put a Conjurer's Closet in? At the beginning
We
of
could.
your end step, you may exile a creature.
We also don't have a Strionic Resonator either.
Ooh.
So any ability, triggered ability, or I should say activated or triggered ability, we can copy it.
Copy target triggered ability you control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
So, I mean, even as simple as at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card.
Yeah, I want to draw another one.
Yeah. 2 mana, draw an extra card. Seems okay.
Yeah. So, Isochron Scepter only works on instants 2 or less.
Yes, correct.
So, we only have 4 that would be worth it, because Cyclonic Rift was generally 7 mana.
Right. I mean, yeah, we're not putting Cyclonic Rift under Isochron.
So, is Isochron really worth it for 3/4 spells? Especially
Maybe
out of
not.
100. And if you're
Maybe
saying
not.
that Final Fortune is a feel bad, I would say that Isochron would be the one to go more than the actual extra turn.
I suppose that's fair. I just still like the idea of putting a Mystic Reflection under it.
That would be horrible, and I like it. But so we're currently at 104 cards. So is 36 lands enough or too much for a 3.51 mana curve?
I think it's a little high. I would go down to 34 or something like this.
Yeah. So we will
And
cut.
I mean, we do have a decent amount of ramp. Not the craziest, but
I mean, our commander's not exactly expensive.
right.
And you can always put in your terramorphic expanses, evolving wilds, shock lands, fetch lands. If you're lucky, original jewels.
Yeah, I think all of that's fine. I think hmm. My question is Mirror Gallery.
Worried about your opponents with the amount of Sakashimas at the moment?
Not even that. 5 mana just to do the legend rule doesn't apply. I think I would rather depend a bit more on Sakashima. We can put him in the graveyard and then reanimate him for
Yeah.
cheaper and get to do it over again. Because we don't have much artifact recursion.
No, that's fair.
But creature recursion we have plenty of. And that could also include Obeka, so.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Um, yeah. And I think,
One more to go.
how do you feel about, do we need the Underworld Breach? I quite like it actually, right?
Yeah, because it's all cards in the graveyard.
Hmm.
Non-land, but still.
In that case, I'm looking at Mirror March at the moment,
It's the
but
most unpredictable one.
right. However, do we need discontinuity?
That's an emergency end the turn. It
Fair
doesn't
enough.
matter whose turn it is.
Fair enough.
Because
So,
Obeka says the player may end the turn, so if you're doing it in someone else's turn, they may say no. And
right.
Sundial of the Infinite is only during your turn. So this is a... We're being attacked by 20 elves that have been crater hoofed, and we're like, no, just end the turn.
That seems fine. Yeah, I think in that case it's the
Hey, Benson.
what's up, Benson? We're only doing Obeka things. Yeah, I think in that case it's probably gonna be Mirror March for me.
Mirage or Sahili? No, Sahili
Sahili might be the
casts our
better.
other copies are Sundial.
Yep, let's just get more sundials. I'm okay with Sahili. I think the Mirror March, if we're doing enough recursion, I think we're okay without making a bunch of them.
No, that seems reasonable. I'd rather keep Sahili over Mirror March anyway.
And I think I'm good with it.
I'm quite happy with this. It's going to definitely get a lot of end of turn effects that should happen, not to happen. And
Yeah.
average CMC is 3.4. It's okay. Got a good amount of creatures to protect us that we're going to copy most of them and steal from other players.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with this.
Yeah. No, I'm happy with that. And if anyone decides to build an Obeka deck, it would be interesting to see how you build it, because we're building not to a budget, not to restriction. So I'd like to see what you guys come up with. And also, if there's any ideas that you want us to do next week or any week after that, just drop us a comment or message us in our Discord, which you can find the link to at intothe99.com, along with all other interesting articles, links to our YouTube channel with more content, more gameplay. You can find our Patreon so you can sponsor us. Also, our merchandise store. As Benson famously said, don't just go into the 99, Wear it. I think that's going to stick with us now. We need to make that a t-shirt.
Benson, we love you.
Oh, yeah. But I think for now, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week.
We love you all. Have a good week.
Take care.